Hi everyone, I wanted to talk to you today about ADHD. I've been meaning to make this video for so long and I finally got half an hour to do it. So I want you to download this and send it to as many people as you can. I'll download the audio as well as the video. And it's a good one just to listen to while you're driving. You know, you don't have to watch me. But I wanted to talk to you about ADHD because there's just so many kids being diagnosed with it, and it's actually really not understood by a lot of parents and by a lot of teachers what is actually going on for these kids internally. You know, we put them on medication and we give them to OTs and all that kind of stuff, and we know that they're struggling, but we're not actually looking at why they're struggling to begin with and why these symptoms are presenting in themselves in the first place. I think a lot of it, you know, a lot of it has to do with a lot of things, and I'll go through those things. But, you know, we have the way that school is taught now, and I know that teachers are trying to branch out of that, and it doesn't suit a lot of kids, and the curiosity isn't there. So we're sitting there and we're trying to learn without the natural curiosity part, without the natural impulse to learn and to seek. And internally, kids are always seeking. They're always wanting more. But there has to be a reward at the end. There has to be a result at the end for them where they get their hands dirty. They get their knowledge thirst quenched, and they're asking questions and they're getting answered. If kids don't get that, then we're firing with no result at the end of it. And that leaves the brain like a big, it's just all this electricity going on with no connections being made. And that is actually what ADHD is. ADHD is when the prefrontal cortex, so this part of the brain, it has a dysfunction in processing. And so what that actually means is that the decision-making part of our brain, our forward-thinking part of our brain, our understanding part of our brain, where we can choose our actions and choose what we're doing and follow through, it's not processing properly. And so when we look at this from what a child is going through, they're sitting in a classroom and they're sitting in the world. There's all these impulses going on, but I'm not really processing anything. And it's an electrical storm, you know. It just there's information coming in. There's curiosity kind of firing, but there's no result at the end of it, and there's no settling at the end of it. And so what we end up with is this seeking attention or this lack of concentration, or you feel like you're talking to them but nothing's actually getting through. And that's because they're not processing their environment. They're not having that deeper understanding, awareness of themselves or the world around them. And so my job in clinic is to help the nervous system relax to a point where that can happen. And I do that with a bit of body work. I do that with breathing. I do that with techniques. And I do that by trying to find why isn't the processing happening in the first place. So I've now been treating kids who are close to being diagnosed or who are diagnosed or have a few symptoms of ADHD now for over a decade. And I have to say, out of hundreds and hundreds of kids, there's a very, very small handful, I could probably count them on one hand, who actually need Ritalin to help them and actually need medication to help them. Usually there are a couple of things that we can do, usually with diet and with understanding what is triggering an overload in their brain. If we make those small changes, then the symptoms disappear or they lessen to a point where it's highly manageable. So the big thing I want to bring everyone's attention to is diet. And I feel like it's being spoken about a lot and it's very confusing for parents. But really what I want to introduce you to is the concept of just eating healthy food. Actually, a lot of the kids I see in clinic, they're malnutritioned. They're not getting enough nutrients in their body. And nutrients make energy, and they make the things that we need in our body to function. And so we're eating cardboard all day long. You know, we're eating chemically processed food. We're eating beige. And everything's fortified with stuff, but it's not enough. It's not what our body really, really needs as far as oxygen and liveliness goes. And so it's the processing of we have nothing to process with. What ends up happening is that because we don't have enough nutrients in our body, we have to rely on cortisol for energy. And cortisol is a stress hormone, it's a stress hormone, and it floods the brain, and it actually shifts the energy from the prefrontal cortex, and it puts us into fight or flight instead. So we start using the back part of our brain, and it actually shuts down the front part of our brain. So when we're in cortisol mode, our brain switches and it shuts down the frontal cortex, which makes processing of the world really, really hard, and it puts us into fight or flight. And when we're in fight or flight, we are hypersensitive to the world around us. We hear everything, we see everything, we notice everything, we have a lot of kind of impulses going. You know, this system is meant to help us survive, and it's meant to make us go, and be, you know, hyper aware. It's not conducive to learning and sitting still and being peaceful. And so we're not getting enough energy. We have to produce cortisol in order to push us forward. And we, in that sense, is into fight or flight, which produces all of the symptoms of ADHD. Without it actually being ADHD, you're malnutritioned, and all your blood tests might come back fine because some of your high nutrients are there, but it's this finite balance within our body that we really need. And we're having Wheat Bix for breakfast with ham and cheese on bread and maybe 1 or 2 pieces of fruit, and then lots of chips and biscuits, and it's just beige. Everything's beige, and it's way too much sugar, and it's way too many chemicals. And I know that you know that, but I want to tell you that it's really, really, really important, because your child is sitting there in class, and if they're only having a beige diet because it's what they want, or because it's habit, they're actually struggling, and they're being labelled as ADHD when they don't need to be. And it's the food that they're eating that's causing that. So why wouldn't you make a really small change daily in order to help your child not have those issues at school? And I see actually mostly it's confusion and it's overwhelm on parents. So, I can completely empathise with that. And children want what they want. I do understand that. But empower them, take them to the supermarket with you, spend time at the supermarket, nut out some time to actually go to the supermarket and have a look at the backs of packets and say, look, guys, okay, we want to fit as many nutrients into this as we possibly can. And we want the least amount of sugar and chemicals. So let's find all of the brands, let's compare them all and find the ones that have most nutrition and least amount of crap. And if you're just having wheat, 5 times a day and no other nutrients, your body has nothing to work on, which also means that, you're not sleeping well enough, your immune system's low, your gut's not great, and you're exhausted most of the time, or you're frustrated and angry. And so if you're getting all of those symptoms, it's very worth just having a look at the diet and seeing what's there. So, for instance, it's just a matter of adding colour to things, real real natural colour to things. So, I give my boys sometimes mushrooms on toast in the morning, and they'll add parsley. You can also add some, good quality goat's cheese or sheep's cheese or something to that as well. So you've got, 3 colours right there, plus really good quality butter, not margarine. Again, if you look on the backs of the margarine and the butter's just your milk solids, but the margarine is your vegetable oils and stuff. So we're not worried about whether our kids are going to get fat or not, because fat happens, and this is something that I really want you to hear. Fat happens because our body has to protect itself from toxins in the bloodstream. So you don't want free-floating toxins in your body, chemicals in your body. So what the body does to protect it is it puts it in a fat cell and stores it, ready to be processed later on. Or it just puts it in a fat cell and keeps it floating throughout the system until it's ready to flow out. So it's toxins that make fat. It's not anything else, and that's why sugar is so contributing to fat. So don't worry about high-fat foods. You want your kids to have good quality fats, because fats make connections. So if you think of the brain as an electrical current, which it is, you want to circulate that neural circuit with fat, and that makes it go fast and makes it go smooth. And when you don't have all of those good quality fats in your brain to keep things flowing through, then you end up short-circuiting. And that's the other part of ADHD, is short-circuiting all the time. So that's my piece on diet. And look, I've got to be honest with you, like 80% of the kids I see in clinic, just the high majority of kids, they're just not getting enough nutrients, and that's why their brain isn't working. The other part is the nervous system. So if you're looking at the diet and you're saying, look, it's actually pretty good, and my kids eat pretty well and they're eating lots of veggies. Another thing I do for my kids is I give them broccoli and cucumber and celery and beans and all that kind of stuff at that afternoon before dinner peckish time. And they, that's when they're zoning out. They're either playing quietly or watching TV, and they're just snacking because they're hungry and because they can smell dinner cooking. So that's when I give them veggies. And it's worth putting that bowl of veggies in front of the kids every day, and just, the brain gets used to seeing something, and when it gets familiar, it feels safe. And so they're not going to refuse it as much. So if you're just keeping it there, within a week or two, they will start snacking on it, especially if there's no pressure involved in it. And so that's a good way you can get all the veggies into them before dinner. But the other part of things is the nervous system. And this is where, you're usually seeing it's not just lack of concentration at school and a bit of hyperactivity and all this kind of stuff. This is where they've had speech problems, they've had sleep problems, they've had, the whole range of things in early developmental life as well, is when the nervous system has been hyperactive since birth. And there's a whole other part to this, which I won't go into too much detail with, because it's just too long-winded. But basically, when a child is born and they're squeezed out of the birth canal, they go, and then they go, oh, and that's that. And they hold on to mum, and they suckle at her breast, and they relax, and they integrate into the world. So they've had this nice big squeeze into the world, and then they come back, they take their first breath, and then they come back and settle into mum, and I feel integrated and I feel safe in the world. Now, we know this doesn't happen on a lot of occasions. I had 2 cesarean births myself, and so they come out and their nervous system gets heightened, and sometimes that coming back into that letting go phase just hasn't happened. And that sets up a hyperactive, what we call a hyperactive Moro reflex. And a little newborn baby, you'll notice that they startle a lot. And you're meant to grow out of this, starts from about 6 weeks. You grow out of this reflex and you start developing control of your body in the world and your actions in the world. With some kids, this reflex has been so strong that it actually doesn't completely go away. So yes, they get a bit more control in the world, but then the reflex is there and it's not meant to be there. So you've got this fight going on in the nervous system between the reflex of the, overstimulated, startle response, reactive response in the world. And they're your reactive kids, they're just reactive to everything. And it feels like their bucket is so close to full all of the time. And their system just hasn't learned to completely switch off. And I know, your brain's going to be like, yeah, that's my kid. They just never switched off. And so with that, we do a lot of body work for that. We do a lot of integration. It's called the primitive reflexes, and you can Google it. There's a lot of information on it, or you can give me a call and we can go through it together. It's quite simple to integrate them. It's just and it does get harder as the kids get older because they've formed so many other compensatory patterns. But there's definitely a lot of things that we can do to help the child just feel safe. And when you feel safe, you can process the world around you. You can feel settled and you can be aware and not reactive of the world. And that's what we need more of with the symptoms that ADHD kids are displaying with. So that's my double-tiered approach. And then there's a few other things like needing emotional processing if there's been trauma in their life and stuff like that. So we can address that as well. The best thing about coming into a kinesiology clinic is that it's just relaxing and they get to lie down and have a massage and everything comes up quite naturally. So if you have got trauma, it's a really gentle space to start talking through until they get comfortable talking through it. So that's, before we start, or, even while you're on medication, it's important to address those two things, diet and the nervous system, and also having a look at what is stimulating the nervous system. Is it too much screen time? Is it too much activity and not enough downtime, relaxed time? Is it that life is too busy? Is it that we're overtired and we're not getting enough just down processing time? Kids can fight that as well, and it can feel like, they need to go out for another run around, but actually what they need is just some Lego time or some drawing time, and sometimes they'll fight you on it and then you just got to push them into it. Or they just need some one-on-one time being around you. And this is the thing with our phones as well. I get into the trap sometimes too and have to really cut it off, is that when they're around us, I'll be present with them. Are they involved in cooking dinner? Are they involved in all these things? And sometimes, because these kids are so challenging, it's easy to try and push them outdoor, whereas actually what they really need is more time around us, doing things with us, having a purpose with us, learning things with us, because school is quite overwhelming sometimes. But I hope that gives you a little bit of a head start. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And I would love to help you and your family. There's no reason why kids should suffer throughout their whole schooling career. And it is possible for them to start to enjoy school. But give me a call or send me an email. Everything's available on emmasternberg.com.au. And thank you for listening, and please pass it on. Thank you. Bye.